start, Dr. Suresh. Dr. Suresh, can we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A very warm good evening to all of you. I would like to welcome you all in this second day of FDP that is sponsored by AICTE ATAL scheme. It is a flagship program of Government of India to promote education and mostly in all the technical institutes. Today, we are fortunate enough to have Professor Pankaj Madan, Director of this FDP and Dean Faculty of Engineering with us to demonstrate and to uh, inform us all about the activities that are going to be conducted in this FDP. So I would like to welcome Professor Pankaj Madan sir. He will be guiding us through the process of this FDP and will be showing us and will be throwing some light on the activities that are going to be conducted in this FDP. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Actually, we were expecting Professor Alok Chakrawal, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Jharkhand, for Kulguru Updesh. We are actually inviting, every day we have invited one Vice Chancellor from different university for Kulguru Updesh because it's a program on academic leadership. And in university, the Vice Chancellor is the top authority. But unfortunately, or fortunately, you can say it is his birthday today. So we wish him a very happy birthday. But due to some reason, he couldn't attend this program. Anyhow, I was asked about to explain the exercises what we are going to conduct because AICT has made this program very, very rigorous. And since you know that this is our third FDP on academic leadership, but this is different because this is advanced program, not the normal FDP, it's an advanced FDP. So we have already told you that the minimum 80% attendance is required in both online and offline. Then there will be two assessments. One assessment will be after online program and one assessment will be after offline program. Except that we are expecting two more things from you as an output, and it will be of 2 weeks combined. One is we say that what is leadership? And yesterday it was, I know it was a very, very interactive session, and we'll go deep into what exactly the leadership is. But in my session, I would say that today is not, it's not my session, but I would say that leadership is about bringing change in your organization. So when we talk about change, one of the important instrument or the question is, sir, how would we bring the change? Like, how would we fight the war? So there are certain instruments, weapons. So like that, we have one instrument with us that is known as action plan. So we will share that action plan with you. So after 2 weeks, in last, there is a session of Professor Marwa, who is very master of explaining you how the action plan is to be filled or to be made. And by the time his lecture comes, your foundation will be okay about leadership. You will have a better understanding about leadership. And then he will explain you how to fill that action plan. So action plan is about the action which you are going to take in your organization after completing this FDP. And in this FDP, you will be preparing a plan for what you are going to do after this FDP. You will take one objective, like if you are a subject teacher or you are in charge of any cell, NSS unit, NCC, or you are suppose HOD or dean, or you have any other responsibility in an organization, in your university or college, and you think that something is to be changed. Now, how that change will come and how you will convince your colleagues, students, staff, administrators, and other authorities in the university for that change, how will you generate fund? All that will come in the action plan. So one output is the action plan. The second important output is the book chapter. So this workshop is about leadership. So we have already sent you, or I think if you have not received, very soon you will receive the list of leaders. I will not say that when we talk about leaders, it is only about the political leadership. But I would say that it is about, like how even the Vice Chancellor said and Dr. Vikas also said, that it is about what in whatever role you are. So we have, through a list of leaders, including scientists, academicians, and those who have bring change in this nation or across the world, we have prepared that list and sent to you. And also some material has been sent to you. So when you are online, you can discuss it with your team, not during this FDP, but during the daytime, because its time is 7 to 9. And the team has also been decided, and it has been shared by the session planners in your group. So you can start preparing, or you can start your thought process about preparing a chapter plan. Once you come to the second week, we will provide you 2 books also on leadership. I welcome Professor Alka Sharma, our resource person for today. She is here. She is most welcome. And very soon her session will also start. So the second output is about the chapter which your team will be writing. And in the last day, your team or one of the representative of the team will be presenting that chapter, and another representative will be representing the action plan. So this is what 2 outputs you have to give on the last day or a day before the last day of this FDP. Except that you will be, when you are here for the offline FDP, when you are in GKV campus, you will have a lot of activities and physical exercises, yoga, all that has been included. And most of the things are as per the AICTE guidelines. So I think I have taken much of the time. Now I hand over the session to the session chair or the session planner. Thank you so much. Session planner, please continue.
Okay, sir. Thank you so very much, sir, for bringing me on board. A very good evening to all the respected dignitaries present on the soft board and also to the research scholars. This ATAL FDP on leadership organized by Faculty of Engineering and Technology Gurukula is one of its kind, in which participants have voluntarily showed their interest and are acting as key pillars in the organization of this program. I believe that this will let participants to experience the true essence of leadership. Now, I would like to invite the session chairperson of today's session, Dr. Mosmi Goyal. Mrs. Goyal is an associate professor in Quantum University with having experience of more than 14 years. Mrs. Goyal has published research papers in national and international journals. Ma'am, we welcome you. The board is all yours.
Thank you, Pranji. Thank you so much. I, Dr. Mosmi Goyal, Associate Professor in Quantum University, Roorkee, bid to a healthy good evening to our Honorable Session Coordinator, Professor Pankaj Madan, Sir, Co-Coordinator, Dr. Suez Bhardwaj, and all the participants. It's my great honor to be in a session chairs for the today's program. This is a great opportunity for me and also for all the participants to be a better understandings and advanced knowledge and on academic leadership, because being an educator or an academician, this is a very important domain. Now, without taking a much of time, we proceed toward the today's sessions. But what could be a better than starting today's sessions with the Vedic mantra? For this, I would like to invite Ms. Ayushi, who is a research scholar in the Department of Management Studies in Gurukul Kangadi, deemed to be University, Haridwar. This FDP is one of its kind in which the participants have voluntarily shown their interest and are acting as a key pillar in the organization of this FDP program. This will let participants experience the sessions of a leadership. So I over the sessions to Ms. Ayushi for chanting the Vedic mantra.
Thank you so much, Mosme ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Devata tap bhadrami chanta rishya sarvavi darvi tapo dikshamapu nishade rugre tato rashtra balmojascha jatam tadasmai deva upsanam mantu. Its relevance with leadership is the sense of the mantra is that force and ooze originate in a nation when it is found by self-seeking sages who wish for the well-being of all. For the purpose of generating this force and ooze, there are 5 traits of a leader according to this mantra, which are Rishya, Bhadraminchanta, Sarvavidaha, Tapaha, Diksha. Rishya, it means the observer. Everyone has the power to see with eyes, but only the Rishi has the power to see the world with another type of vision in addition to that image. That is the power to see with wisdom. Bhadraminchanta, it means gentle lovers of the nation. Sarvavidaha, no feeling of self-benefit. Hard worker or the person who is happy with himself. Tapaha, tenacity in life, tolerance and simplicity is called tapa. Diksha, to take a task firmly in hand is called diksha. Over to you, ma'am. Mosmi ma'am, are you there?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you audible? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you are
Thank you,
audible.
ma'am, for simplifying and explaining the meaning of a mantra. Yes, you said a good leader always acts as an activator. He focus on the team interest and encouragement, garner credibility, and also become the role model of their followers. Yeah, I believe that each one of us might be having a unique interpretations of this mantra. So I requested to all the participants to participate in discussion questions. Now we are starting a session for the discussion questions. So all participants participate in this. The question is, how do these traits help in a better leadership skill? I requested to all the participants to participate in these discussions. Present your views. I repeat the questions. How do these traits help in a better leadership skill?
Uh, Very good evening, ma'am. In my view, as it was said that researchers, the Rishi is having a vision. I'm in a modern context, I may relate with the Rishi with the researcher. So I feel that a researcher, the person who is working on a specified research area, must be having some vision about the application and the realistic problem what we are dealing with. So I think a researcher and the Rishi are both related with each other, and if the researcher can be motivated with the setting an example of a Rishi.
Yes, sir. Right saying. Yes. Any other students want to present their view? Yeah, Miss Ayushi, you explained the 5 traits. Yeah, you simplified these 5 traits. This is the qualities of a leadership. And
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Lalit sir said being a researcher have also the good quality and they should be a very specific area and they do the work on a specific area. This is a very right. It was indeed a good decisions and the point brought up by the participants are imperative. For further proceeding, now I would like to invite a session coordinator, Mr. Navneet Kumar Shukla. Sir is a sir is a guest faculty in the Faculty of Management at MJP Rohelkhand, Bareilly. Mr. Shukla is also pursuing a PhD from MJP University, Bareilly, and he having specialization in a marketing management and human resource management with 4 years of a teaching experience. Sir, now I over the sessions to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Before I start something, I would like to say 2 things. First thing is, I'm really very thankful to the entire Gurukul team because I have gone through many, not many, but more than 5 or 6 FDP conducted by ATAL and different university. As a participant, you gave me a chance to be the part of this FDP as a body. For that, I would like to thank Professor Madan sir, Professor Suyas Bharadwaj sir, London Prachi ma'am, because this is the example of the creating leadership quality in participant like us, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for this opportunity, sir. So I would like to mention something about the today's resource person, Professor Alka Sharma, ma'am. I welcome her. She is serving as a professor in the business school, University of Jammu, with approximately 13 years of teaching experience. She has published more than 35 papers in national and international journals and books published in international publishers. Very recently, she has published in International Journal of Electronic Marketing and Retailing, International Journal of Online Marketing. Her research interests include social media marketing, digital marketing, and entrepreneurship. Beside academic pursuits, she has an administrative experiences spanning more than 10 years in various capacity in the University of Jammu. So I would like to invite ma'am. Please, ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Navneet ji, for a introduction, very brief and crisp. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, as you all are aware that this is an FTP which Gurukul Kangri has been hosting very successfully for some time. I remember this is, I believe, my 3rd or 4th session with them. So that shows itself that Gurukul Kangri has been doing a great job as far as this ATAL FTP is concerned. So I'm thankful to Professor Pankaj, to Dr. Suyash for considering me, giving me an opportunity again to be a part of this particular initiative. And I'm also very excited because majority of the participants, they come from very diverse backgrounds and diverse universities. That makes it very more interesting because then you tend to know, then you tend to understand so many people at the same time. So I hope that my session will be of some use to majority of the people. Well, we all are teachers, and difference of opinion is always welcome. I do believe that if anybody has a as a diverse opinion as compared to mine, it is most welcome, because yes, we must be rishis first, to observe, to understand, and then to interpret. So with this, I would request Prachi to please start my presentation. Uh, Prachi, can you help me with that, because I have not downloaded my presentation. I have sent it to you, but I have not downloaded it.
Yes, ma'am, for sure. I would like to ask Suyash sir to please present because he is the host.
Oh, that's great. So,
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Suyash, please share my PPT so that we start the discussion today.
Prachi, I have given you the presentation rights. You can share your screen.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Ma'am, just give me a minute.
I'm okay with a minute. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is gonna be a very long session because they are saying it for 2 hours, and it's okay for a teacher to speak for 2 hours, but it is difficult for a teacher to listen for 2 hours. So, with this, I believe that we are able to, collaborate together more effectively in the session and make it more interesting and of some use to all of us. Thank you, Tanya. Uh, I always have believed that all the teachers, they have their own very unique styles of teaching, and students always adjust to the different teaching styles. But today I've been given a very different topic, and that is developing highly effective teachers. In management, effective word is very highly used and misused, right? So I hope that I do justice to this term of effective teaching. Uh, in my presentation, I'm going to focus a bit on NEP also, the new education policy, because I'm sure majority of the teachers, whether in higher education or at UG level, they all are facing lot of hassles with regards to adjusting their schedules, their timetables, their curriculum with what NEP is suggesting. So that is why I thought that let me talk about effective teaching, but in the context of NEP. So that is where I am going to begin. And Prachi, is it going to take some more time?
Yes, ma'am, just a minute. I'll start your PPT.
Okay.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt, but I would like to mention that the question which you gave to the participants for
Yeah.
pre-interaction activity, the
Mhm.
question was with the coming of new education policy, how you plan to prepare yourself.
Yes.
Ma'am, many of the participants have answered this question in a in a very strict way. Some have said to build some, try to focus more on teaching, learning, and research-based project. I would like to mention a few participants. Dr. Nirmesh Sharma ma'am has mentioned her answer has mentioned her answer.
I am also equally eager to listen what people have to say about this, because this is something which is a hot debate issue nowadays. What do the teachers do in
Yes,
NEP?
ma'am. With the new education policy, many changes are yet to come.
Yeah.
And some of the participants, like Vimla ma'am, has mentioned that she is preparing new syllabus according to NEP, and she is taking more time to interact with the students.
Great, great.
Sandeep Rohal has said that plan and act according to new NEP, and they are eager to promote for technology enabled learning with outcome based education. Sir, ma'am, very good answers have been received in the pre-interaction activity.
That's really nice. So I think that makes my job more interesting as well as more challenging, because everybody has an idea, has something to say about the topic, has something to say about what we are gonna speak. So I hope we do justice.
We will start with the Pallavi. You can share your screen. Ma'am, we have the participants from different area, different fields. Some are from management, some are from social studies, some are from medicinal plants department, some are from electronics and computer science engineering field.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Your PPT is visible.
Yeah, can you make it a slightly bigger, because I believe the next content may not be. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you. So firstly, I would like to welcome all the participants to my session, which is here displayed on the screen itself, which says that developing highly effective teachers, measuring and shaping. So, as the topic says, that we are going to talk about effectiveness in teaching. We are going to talk about it. How do we measure? And then probably some strategies we are going to discuss. Um, that can be followed to increase our effectiveness in teaching, because that is what is getting a lot of focus now, because now teacher training is something which is coming up in a very big way when we are talking about NEP. So yes, these are the three aspects that we are gonna discuss in our presentation. Prachi, the next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to first build a bit of a background or the landscape. When we talk about the changes, now the majority of the changes have been technological, right? For example, we are talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about big data, we are talking about learning, machine learnings, and the number of jobs which earlier used to be there, they were mainly unskilled. So they have been more or less routinized. And what has happened that machines have now taken over the place of human beings performing the unskilled jobs. But if you look at the focus on skilled workforce, has suddenly come to the forefront. The focus has increased, right? And that is where, we see that the kind of learning that is now required by a student in institutions of learning, and more so in the field of higher learning institutions, that has come up suddenly. And it is so very evident when we are talking about the NEPs, right? Because NEP is having its key focus on the skill, developing a skilled workforce. So that is where I think we should start, that the major change that has come in the knowledge landscape is that the unskilled jobs are being taken over by machines, whereas these skilled jobs continue to be with the human beings, with the human workforce, but the level of skill that is required is much higher. Now, when we talk about the skill, it generally spreads across multiple disciplines, right? So a mathematical skill, probably somebody very good in mathematics, could not be restricted to only the department of mathematics, because a social sciences person with a strong mathematical skills has a different kind of job profile that is available, right? So this makes it skill, multiple disciplines, or multidiscipline abilities. And the second thing that has come up is that, when we are talking about these two paradigms, we are talking about experience. So learning is now being focused as an experience. And if it is an experience, it has to be integrated with something more. It has to be more customer focused, or it has to be more student focused. Therefore, a student who is going in a class and learning through discussion, or there is a flexibility in the learning mechanisms, that makes it more experiential as compared to what has been traditionally there, right? So, Prachi, the next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
So what are the major problems that we see that are being faced by the institutions of higher education? First is that the system is severely fragmented. The higher education ecosystem is so badly fragmented that we cannot think of an integrated approach with the existing system. It needs to be, it needs to be knitted together, so that we are in a position to provide a holistic learning to a student. For example, I would like to say here that majority of us, when we did our education at a UG or a PG level, it was so domain specific that probably I am a management teacher, or I have been a management student. I know, only thing that I know is management. I know very less or no knowledge about sciences, physical sciences, or the other subjects, right? So what has happened, the compartmentalized approach has been there in our teaching. The second one is that there has been literally negligible or no focus on the cognitive skills of a student. And what do you want a student to learn in a class? That is something very important. When we say this, we say that, for example, I am teaching marketing to my student, right? And when I start teaching him marketing, I start from marketing, its definition, its concept. Traditionally, we have been doing it. And then, but when the student goes into the market, he must know the ROI, return on investment. How is he going to recover that? From the marketing process. But in our marketing class, we are rarely talking about it. That what is the linkage between the two. So we have been very, very, the learning outcomes have been that the student should understand marketing, the process of marketing, this, that, everything about marketing. But do we see that a student should learn that how does marketing gel with the other areas? So this has been a less emphasized part. The next thing is the disciplines have been rigidly different, right? We have been telling our student when he was in class 11 that what do you want to study? So you want to study sciences, you want to study arts, you want to study social sciences, commerce, management, what? And then he has been going into that narrow area, and that has been becoming more narrower as he moved towards the higher education. So this rigid separation has actually restricted the knowledge, the understanding, and what we say, the experience that a student could have from his studying or his learning. The next one is uh, education has been less available in the socio-economically disadvantaged areas. I belong to a place where it is a very hilly region, hilly terrain. It's only 2 cities or 3 cities which are more or less plain. The rest of the entire UT of Jammu and Kashmir is a hilly terrain. There are some areas where you don't see a school for so many kilometers together because it's very hilly. The population is very less, and whatever is there, if they want to study, they have to come to the city. So, you know, the limited access has made education, you know, um less available, less experienced. During COVID times, when we were trying to have our online classes, majority of the students had an issue that, ma'am, there is no net available at our places. So when the net is not available, tell me how would the classes are off, the schools are closed, everything is not working, nothing is working, and the student is having an online class and the net in that area does not exist. So what has happened to the education of the children in that area? Leave aside higher education, even the basic school education has not been available. So this is another major problem that is being faced by our higher education system. Then the autonomy that has been given to our teacher and to the institution is very limited. Outside majority of the foreign universities or majority of the big institutions, the teacher has the liberty to define his or her syllabus, his curriculum for a particular semester, for a particular year, right? And that makes it that whatever new he has learned, he or she is able to share with his or her students. So majority of the places in our education system, this system is not prevalent. So we make a syllabus, we can only revise it 20%, only 20%. And if there are some fundamental courses, then even that 20% also is not available because fundamentals don't change much, right? So what happens that the autonomy that has been given to you as a teacher to go in a class, interact, discuss with your student what new you have learned, that has been limited, that has been restricted. So these are some of the issues. Prachi, may I go to the next slide, please?
Sure, ma'am.
Now, we also talk about inadequate mechanisms for merit-based career management. Majority of the government institutions, they have a set pattern of performance. आजकल API स्कोर हम सब लोग काम करते हैं. Every teacher is so focused on getting the API score that somewhere we have, we have become the machines to generate APIs rather than focusing on what to teach, how to teach, how to interact with the student. That became secondary, because nowhere we are talking about merit based career management. There is no such scheme available for a teacher, which is very strange, right? Majority of the universities and colleges, uh, you know the focus on research has decreased somewhere. We do not focus on creating something new, sharing it with our student, and making his learning better than the predecessors, right? And research funding across disciplines has also been badly affected, has been negatively affected. So these two things that a teacher has to do a good research and share it with his students, with his or her students, and a very effective management, uh, career management scheme. These two things, they have really been one big hurdle when we are talking about higher education system and teachers in higher education. Governance and leadership, we all know, suboptimal. I would not say that it is very bad, but it is not the optimum also. Things could be done more. The processes, the procedures, the rules that are being followed are so rigid that sometimes the 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 creativity that gets killed in the process of governance, right? An ineffective regulatory system. We all know that a lot of regulations are coming. There are so many bodies talking about the regulations. So somewhere that overlapping of institutions, overlapping regulatory bodies has created some kind of confusion many a times in us, that how should we go about it. Now, the other thing is there are some large affiliating universities, and these universities have so many colleges affiliated with them that it is really difficult to monitor those colleges, and as a result, standard of education at undergraduate level has substantially been marred. uh, we have seen it in our state in B.Ed education, that there were so many colleges opening up, and ultimately university was not able to, you know was not able to manage them. Many of them had to close down. The number of students got decreased, and many places, the kind of student, the kind of training that he could have come up during the B.Ed, that was not easily available, right? So yes, these are some of the aspects that we see that exist in our higher education department today, in higher education uh, institutions, and that is where we see that a need to look at, to improve, is there, right? Prachi, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah.
Sure, ma'am.
Let's talk about now the global scenario when we are talking about a university. Look at this. Majority of the talent from the best of the institutions that moves into a university. The best researchers, the best teachers, right? They are based in the university system. Concentration of talent is there in a university. Um, I was reading a report of American universities. If you see their world ranking, majority of the ranking is being, you know, is being controlled by the American universities. Look at the kind of work they are doing, and they have those resources available because the people there are capable of handling that kind of research. So concentration of talent is one. The second thing that I have to talk about is the kind of resources that are available. abundant resources. I've just given an example that Harvard University's budget is more than the total budget of our higher education. पूरी कंट्री का बजट एक तरफ हायर एजुकेशन का और हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी का अकेली का बजट equal, right? So if we are talking about our resources, our capability to generate good research is very limited, right? And if we are to talk about it further, just two things, that the kind of people that are available in university system, they are bright, they are good, but the kind of resources that are available to them sometimes mar their talent, sometimes restrict their talent, and they are not able to create that kind of impact in education system. Can I go to the next slide, Prachi?
Sure, ma'am.
Right. So we talk about that if this is the scenario, what are the difficulties that we have in India, that we are not able to structure our education system to the world level, world class. The first and the foremost thing is that we have a mindset which is still 19th century. The 20th century, we have set our processes in 20th century, and the need is to go in the 21st century. So we as teachers are still not prepared to move with time. What we are talking today in our class, I remember once I was attending a session in Bombay, and somebody was telling that the kind of jobs that are available today, they will not be available 10 years down the line. But have we changed our education? Have we changed our learning system at the same pace at which the jobs are changing? No. The reason being, we are still talking about the education which probably we thought of in the 19th century. It is surprising that we had in 21st century the first education policy which came up now, 2020 NEP. So somewhere we need to really pick it up. The second thing is that the qualified faculty is a shortage. Either the universities have not hired, they have not conducted interviews, or they have not found the right kind of people. So there is a shortage of qualified faculty in majority of higher education institutions. And the faculties are doing too many jobs. Teaching has come up to be only one job, but they are doing teaching, they are doing research, they are doing administration, they are doing everything. Majority of the institutions, they have a shortage of staff, teaching faculty, and everyone in administration. So probably my assistant professor is working as a clerk, as a junior assistant, doing that job which a junior assistant would have done, going to a class, coming back, preparing a report. Too much of paperwork. So teachers' rules are not well defined. Teacher is supposed to teach. Teacher is supposed to do research. These are the primary jobs. But these have come up to be one of the jobs which the teachers perform. So this is a very important thing that is affecting our education system. The next thing that we talk about is political willingness. Is there that kind of will Has there been that kind of will to bring a change? I would give you an example. NEP started in 2020. They are saying we will implement it by 2024, by 2040. Do we see that the education system will stagnate from 2020 to 2040? 20 years, very long period. So the change has to be more subtle, the change has to be more acceptable, but there has to be a change. The pace has to be slightly more than what has been there. So political willingness to bring a change is the undercurrent. Are we focusing at capturing the global talent? Many good researchers, many good teachers, they get one opportunity and move to England, to US, to any Western country and not stay in India. And we are talking of capturing a global talent. The reverse is required. If we are looking at a good education, world-class education in India, our culture is not inclusive. We are not allowing participation. The decision making is still very restrictive. And it is more so in private institutions. In government, still there are some rules, they are trying to incorporate everybody into it. But in private institutions, people are more, they are more centralized. The decision making is centralized. The culture is not, they have a lot of resources, but the decision making is very restrictive. And then there are some institutions which are centralized, central institutions, for example, central universities there, then there are state universities, then there are deemed to be universities, then there are private universities, then there are autonomous colleges. Very confusing. It's very, very confusing. We really do not know how to go about it. Right. And then government regulations. They are so rigid. For example, the PPP model is yet to be the norm in government. एजुकेशन सिस्टम में पीपीपी मॉडल अभी भी बहुत ज्यादा सक्सेसफुल नहीं है, जबकि ये सब जगह चलता है. बट गवर्नमेंट और प्राइवेट की पार्टनरशिप is not very common to be seen when we are talking about higher education. Either it is a government job or it is a private job, but there is no collaboration between the two. So that's another one. Prachi, the next slide, please.
Ma'am.
So now we talk about the NEP. Prachi, the next slide. Yeah. The National Education Policy, as I said just now, that it is the first education policy of 21st century. And, suddenly the focus is on many, many imperatives. The country, the GDP must grow. We should be a 5 trillion economy. How do we go about it? We need a lot of workforce. Suddenly the focus on skills. So everything is now boiling down to few things. They have all been incorporated, and probably the education system has been so quickly changing. We came up with the CBCS, we came up with the non-CBCS, we came up with the semester system. Now we are coming up with NEP, skill, major, minor, too many changes. Right. And teachers have started finding it very, very cumbersome. That how to go about with so many changes. There are so many changes. Right. The next one. Prachi, the next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Please click it more. One more. Thank you. So the last policy that we had before 2020 was 1986. As I said, that the procedure has been 20th century, the teaching has been the 19th century, and where we are teaching all that in the 21st century. So 1986 was the first was the new national policy on education, NEP, and where we talked about the focus was on access and equity, because we wanted the education to be made available, because before that our literacy rate was below 50%. So we wanted it to be available to everybody, and we made sure that everybody gets an equal opportunity to study. So Right to Education Act 2009 was a result of this, that everybody must get basic education, must be a literate. And what was the qualification to be considered a literate? That you could sign. आप अपनी सिग्नेचर कर सकते थे, हस्ताक्षर कर सकते थे, तो आप पढ़े लिखे. Right to Education Act. Since 86 to 2020, right? It is more than 40 years we took to talk about quality in our education. 40 years is the time we are talking about, almost 40 years, right? Where we talked about quality in our education system. And that is where, we started realizing that the pace at which the world is changing, we are not able to move along with the same speed. The reason being, the kind of people we required to move along were not available in India, because our education system did not create that kind of learner, right? So the next slide, Prachi. Now the 2020 framework, it talked about quality education, and for a quality education, they said that we should design a vision and a framework. And it was the vision and framework, or the policy implementation, was divided into two parts. We started from school education and went up to higher education. This was one level, right? So this was something where we were talking about formative years, formal education, starting from pre-nursery. Everything now started getting defined, decided, that how, what should happen. And finally, when we talked about, the next one, next
Yes,
slide,
ma'am.
Prachi.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the key focus here was that we should change our education system at the school level first, and a multidisciplinary higher education be created across the country. The idea here was that the multidisciplinary education would provide the right kind of attitude and the right kind of skill set to a student, right? Depending upon in which he can excel. We know many kids from our time, from our juniors, that they never wanted to be an engineer, but parents' pressure was so high that they studied non-medical, and then they became engineers, and they got a job, but they never excelled in their job because they never wanted to be an engineer. I still remember one of my known. He was a very good singer. His father was a doctor. The boy was a wonderful singer and he wanted to pursue music. And I remember that his father told him कि तुम ये बाजा बजाना सीख के क्या करोगे? सड़क पे गाना गा के पैसे कम, are you going to beg? So, no, this is not right. You be an engineer and start earning. He became an engineer, but he never excelled in engineering. But I'm sure today, if somebody says that I want to learn music, but I am okay, I will read science, but I will study music also with science. That is a possibility today. That is why a student has more chances of excelling today as compared to what it was before. Right? And the net output of this is going to be that the GER is going to increase from 82 to 100% by 2035. That everybody, every single individual in India who will be in that age group would be a learned person. The second NEP objective is to build world class universities. अगर आप ग्लोबल रैंकिंग्स देखो तो इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज रेयरली फिगर करती हैं, रेयरली. And the aim is that by 2035, again, we have some universities which are a world-class university, which can be considered a world-class university, and we can get a global rank. So these are the two clear-cut objectives that have been set under NEP. Now, the next slide. The next one, yes. So what are the changes that will happen to the current system? So what will happen that the government is focusing on creating higher education system, right? Where the universities and colleges are being created in every district, right? So that majority of the population has an institution of higher learning nearer to his or her place. So accessibility is going to go up. If you look at the undergraduate system today that is being proposed under the NEP, you would be surprised that a student of arts can learn science at the same time, right? And for example, the BBA course which has been which is being proposed in our university, that not only talks about the management courses, but that also talks about something which is related to, say, language. A student has a choice to take a language course. Student has a choice to, select a paper in a skill which can be of very closely related to your subject, or it can be as diverse as something else. Then there are some other courses which are being talked about as value added courses. So they are separate, the skill courses are separate, the language courses, the science courses. So student has a basket. He can study from any of these and he can mix and match. So a multidisciplinary undergraduate system, right? With this, it has to provide more autonomy to the institution and faculty. I may be given more opportunity to revise my syllabus every year, because it is the examination system also which is getting changed with it. So the faculty and the institution autonomy is proposed to be increasing, right? Then the curriculum, the pedagogy, the assessments, right? Everything is going for a change. The reason being the kind of learning that is being focused on in this multidisciplinary approach, that is entirely different. For example, in MBA, apprenticeship is becoming, earlier it used to be a single thing that was a summer training. Now apprenticeship is being embedded into every single semester. What will happen? The student, what he will learn in a class, he will go to the market and he will practice it there. So maybe some marks from the class, some from that learning, the practical learning, and that is what makes a lot of sense. Okay, so how will it happen? Because now you will revamp your course and make it more practical, project oriented, learning oriented, right? The next slide, please, Prachi.
Yes, ma'am.
There's one more point, Prachi. Yeah. Now, we have to ensure that the faculty is and institutional leadership is more, we say, has more integrity. So the appointments have to be more merit based, because now the teaching, earlier we used to go for a lecture mode and judge a person from the kind of presentation he or she would make. Now that is not going to work. The reason being that now the students' learning is going to be different, right? And therefore, the skill set that is required by a teacher is very, very different, right? So career progression is going to be something which is going to be based on the kind of teaching he or she does. For example, your feedback that is being incorporated into every single institution now is going to be the key determining factor that whether you continue in your position or not. Especially there is a possibility that, like American universities, here also they would talk about the contract, not the contractual which we face here, but the university will not hire the faculty for that once you are appointed you continue to be a faculty. It is expected that a change is there, and they say that okay, we sign you for 5 years, and 5 years down the line we will see, we will consider it again that whether you are going to be with us or not. So that's something which is, also going to happen maybe very soon. National Research Foundation is being created to fund research. One of the initiative under this is RUSA also, Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, where a lot of money is being proposed for research funding and all. And many universities are getting a lot of funds, which has a seed research money in universities, colleges, and promoting research. For example, my university is among top 16 universities where we have got 100 crores from RUSA, and majority of the funding is for research. So that makes it, that now the faculty is being given an opportunity to excel in research by making available the funds which have always been a shortage in the traditional university system. Then the governance is changing. They are giving us a lot of autonomy, to administrative autonomy, to to make sure that our processes are in line. Independent boards, board of governors is being created in many institutions of higher eminence. They are saying that a lot of autonomy through these boards, but again the accountability is becoming more higher. I was on an ACT visit a month back to a medical university where BBA was also being offered as one of the specialization. I was there and I was seeing the kind of, uh, the kind of contribution their board is making in governance, or in defining the governance procedures for that university. And that university got A plus, but it missed by very small mark, the A double plus, very small mark. That is what is the strength that these boards, independent boards, are creating for these institutions. Light but tight. Single regulator. For example, AICTE is coming up to be, UGC earlier used to be there. Now there is a strong possibility that all these institutions will merge and create a single institution, and maybe there is no more a UGC, AICTE, etc., etc. There's just one body that will make sure that everything in higher education is being taken care by them. So these are some of the changes that are happening, and they make a lot of relevance when we talk about NEP 2020. Prachi, maybe we can go to the next slide.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
I don't see any activity there. Is everybody sleeping or everybody left? Are the participants there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am. All the participants are there, ma'am. They are listening very carefully.
Okay, because being a teacher, you need to get a feedback from the participants. If Pallavi, kindly move to the next slide. Yes, because when you don't get the feedback, then you think that either you are very boring, or you don't make any sense at all.
Ma'am, whenever we attend such class, such interactive class, then there is a pin drop silence. So you can consider it as a pin drop silence, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So
Thank you.
maybe I am making some sense then, right? Yeah. So now what is happening, that there is a architecture that is now emerging because of NEP. And what is this architecture? The architecture is proposing that the fragmentation should come to an end, right? The fragmentation should come to an end, and the higher education institutions, they should evolve themselves. And what should be the evolution? That multidisciplinary universities be there, the large universities which take care of teaching part, the teaching part, right? Then there are the college. No, the previous slide, dear Prachi, please, the previous slide. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
So multidisciplinary universities, then the colleges, and then the clusters, and everything should have 3,000 or more students. So idea is that besides the fact that it should be accessible to every student in a particular area, they are focusing that a university or a college or a cluster, it should be so integrated that they all together create that ecosystem in which our institutions can excel, right? And it is believed that all the institutions of higher learning would be categorized under three categories. The first one are the research intensive universities. For example, the universities like AICTE, right? Or maybe IITs. They are institutions, but they are research intensive institutions. Teaching universities. For example, mine is a teaching university or a multidisciplinary university. A teaching university, a teaching multiple discipline university. And then there are some which are going to be autonomous degree granting colleges. So government focuses that all the colleges should finally upgrade to degree granting autonomous colleges over a period of time. What will happen? The universities will have a lot of focus, because once the degree moves out of the university into a college also, that unique thing that a university had of granting a degree will cease to exist. Now there will be colleges which will be giving a degree. Therefore, the universities have to define their own category in which they want to excel and be placed, right? This is a big challenge that is there in front of majority of universities, and they have to decide their way very soon. If they don't do it, it's going to be very difficult for them to survive in the coming years. Can I go to the next slide, Prachi? Yes. Now, NEP for teachers. Now, you would say that, ma'am, अभी तक हम सारा वही पढ़ रहे थे, अभी तक हम context में थे, तो teacher का क्या हुआ? What happens to the teacher? So we all agree that we are doing a most noble role, right? Traditionally, we have been the most respected member of our society. And every teacher who was considered to be the most learned person in a society always became a teacher. Does it hold true now? Does it hold true now that the most learned and the bestest person with wonderful skills to communicate and to teach earlier used to become a teacher? What is the criteria of becoming a teacher today? It's not the performance. We are not getting the best of the people. Once a question was raised in a symposium. We all were teachers there, and somebody asked a question, and I genuinely started thinking about it. He said that, how many of you wanted to become a teacher? Did you become a teacher by choice? Question mark. I was looking into myself when I did my MBA way back in 1990. 1990, long time back. I never thought that I will be a teacher. Never. I became a teacher because my family was not comfortable with a corporate job. And everybody said that teaching is the ideal profession for a woman. And I became a teacher. Everybody means my family, my people, right? And I had no answer to those queries, the questions. Please ask this question to yourselves. Did you become a teacher by choice? Question mark. If yes, then probably you are the best. If no, then we need to upgrade ourselves. We need to consider that there is something that I need to learn more, because शायद ये मेरा natural instinct नहीं था. Right? So, with this, I come to the next point, that why is it important for me to have a answer to this question? Because what I know, what I learn, I pass only that to my student. So if my knowledge is optimal, if my skill set is optimal, and if I am ethically strong enough, then only I should be a teacher. Otherwise, there are going to be an issue as a teacher, especially in the present context. When we say that teacher is evaluating, टीचर सब कुछ कर रहा है, आपके पेपर चेक कर रहा है, आपका एग्जाम का नंबर दे रहा है, आपके इंटरनल, आपका एक्सटर्नल, आपका सब कुछ एक टीचर के पास है. तो हम कितने एथिकल हैं? दैट रेजेस अ मार्क. मैंने क्लास में जाके क्या किया? मैंने बच्चे को कैसे इवैल्यूएट किया? Was I biased? Did I do my job well? This is ethics. I must have answers to these queries. Right. And now, if I look at that, then it means that the process of recruitment, deployment, empowerment, there's a mismatch. Why? Because if हम लोग मैनेजमेंट में पढ़ते हैं ना कि जो एचआर होता है वो वो जॉब फिट निकालता है कि क्या कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं जो एक जॉब को परफॉर्म करने के लिए, क्या टीचर के लिए जॉब फिट निकाला जाता है? कॉर्पोरेट में लोग जो मशीन हैंडल करता है, जिसका पूरा मैकेनिकल काम है, उसके लिए भी जॉब फिट निकालते हैं। और हम जो एक फ्यूचर जनरेशन को प्रिपेयर करते हैं, क्या हमारा जॉब फिट नहीं होना चाहिए? अगर नहीं होता है तो शायद वो मिसमैच, desired standards in education system, if they are missing, then probably somewhere we are to blame for it, right? And if these are taken care, the teacher will again get the respect. I'm talking in general. I'm not saying that we are not respected or you are not respected. I'm just raising a point. You generally read that in Western world, teachers are the highest paid. Salary is a mark that how much you are respected in a place, in a country. Sweden is the place where teachers are the most highest paid. In India, we are not the highest paid. So maybe that shortfall of that deficit that we have in performance is leading to a lesser respect for teacher. Therefore, the NEP 2020, it focuses on motivation and empowerment of teachers too. So it's not only that we are talking about the change, the student, the focus on student, but NEP also talks about that a teacher also needs to be motivated. The teacher also needs to be empowered in order to make sure that he or she performs to that optimum level in a class. Prachi, can I have the next slide?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, your slide is ready.
Yeah. So, do we have any answer to this question? That as teachers, are we ready for this change? I would like to know from the participants towards the end of this. Why? Because, sometimes a quick answer may not be the complete answer. I'm not saying the incorrect answer it is, but it's not a complete answer. So please note down somewhere that as teachers, are we ready for this change? By towards the end of the session, I would seek an answer from you with regards to this. And if you are ready for this change, what are the parameters that you are talking about? You have started working upon in this context. Prachi, can we go to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Next slide is ready.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what is the new context? Now, NEP is there. It has come up with something. We are changing. And what is the change? What is the new context? The first thing that is there is that environment in which education is taking place is changing very fast. Okay. Do we agree to this or not? That the environment is changing very fast. And it is not only the change, because change can be positive, change can be negative. It is changing and it is evolving. It is going for a better. Right. So education is changing, is evolving. Right. Few days back, I was talking to one of my colleagues. He's a professor in mathematics. And I was talking to him, and I generally happened to ask him that, sir, your one of your son was an engineer. So what is he doing now? He said, my son is working with a marketing company. I said, अच्छा उसने MBA किया क्या? जो typically हमारे दिमाग में रहता है. उन्होंने बोला नहीं. तो आई सेड कि अच्छा वो इंजीनियर है तो किसी सर्विस फर्म में लगा? बोले नहीं, मार्केटिंग फर्म में लगा. तो आई सेड कि what is he doing there? He said he is doing mathematical modeling for them. I said, अच्छा, what is that? So he said कि mathematical modeling is that he's working for the company and devising equations for them that how their sale can be increased. तो उनकी प्रॉफिट को इंक्रीज करने की जो इक्वेशंस हैं वो उनके ऊपर काम करता है और कंपनी को वो इक्वेशंस कंटिन्यूअसली इवॉल्व करके देता है. इंटरेस्टिंग इट इज. एंड देन आई आस्क्ड हिम कि सर आपका छोटा बेटा क्या करता है? तो उन्होंने कहा कि मेरा छोटा बेटा वो मास्टर्स कर रहा था, लेकिन अब वो म्यूजिक गिटार बजाना सीख रहा है. He has joined a band with his college and he is doing very well. ऐसे सर उसकी इंजीनियरिंग का क्या हुआ? कहने लगे वो उसने कर ली है. सो द एजुकेशन सिस्टम. आई सेड उसने म्यूजिक कहाँ सीखा? ही सेड वो यहाँ पे सीखता था, फिर उसको इंजीनियरिंग की सीट मिल गई, फिर मैंने उसको प्रेशराइज किया, वो इंजीनियरिंग के लिए चला गया और अब वो कहता है कि मुझे इंजीनियरिंग नहीं करनी है, मुझे म्यूजिक ही करना है. तो उसने अपना बैंड बना लिया है और वो बैंगलोर में है. एन इंजीनियर learnt music in his college and now is a part of a band. So environment, you can think of it आज से 10 साल पहले. Today it is there. The second there is that the communication with stakeholders has suddenly become very important. So it's not that you're talking only to your student. No, you are not. You're talking to the student. You're talking to the alumni. You're talking to to your employers. You're talking to the parents. You're talking to your teachers. है ना? फीडबैक 360 डिग्री आता है तो उसमें सबसे, तो आप सबसे बात करते हैं, आप सबको देखते हैं. This is something which is interesting. So better communication with stakeholders. Then we are trying to engage our student more effectively. हम अपने स्टूडेंट से ज्यादा बात करते हैं. We are engaging them more. पहले क्लास हुई, बच्चे कहाँ गए, nobody bothered. Now the engagement with the student has suddenly increased. And what has happened as a result? As a result of that, we now know more about our student. मेरे प्रोफेसर को मेरे बारे में कितना पता था मुझे पता नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे आज अपने स्टूडेंट के बारे में सर्टेनली उनसे ज्यादा पता है. जो वो मेरे बारे में जानते थे उससे आज मुझे अपने स्टूडेंट के बारे में ज्यादा पता है. So engaging student. The next thing is we just a minute. There. So we are talking about the behavior. We focus a lot on how a student is behaving in a class. What is the adaptation that is taking place? How his behavior is improving, how he's changing. That's a new context. You know, we earlier were less bothered कि बच्चा क्लास में आया कि नहीं आया, आया तो उसने क्या किया. We didn't bother much. But now the focus is there. We are talking कि student class में नहीं आया, 4 दिन से नहीं आया, क्या बात है, क्यों नहीं आया? अगर नहीं आया या क्लास में आके बच्चा अटेंटिव नहीं है, We have to look into these parameters. And the next thing is that now the internal environment that is there in your organization, that has a better harmony between a teacher and a student in a class. We are trying to create a better environment in which we are more harmoniously placed with our student than we were before. So this is the context in which now the NEP is making us perform, right? Maybe go to the next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Prachi. Right. So now, the next question that we are talking about is teaching is equal to learning? Right? तो अब हम एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन पे आ गए कि क्या मैं जो क्लास में पढ़ाती हूँ, क्या वो सबका सब बच्चा लर्न कर लेता है या बच्चे को समझ आ जाता है? तो क्या मैंने जब अपना सिलेबस कवर किया, is it an indicator that the student has learned all that? No, it is never equal. It is not equal. So we need to understand that what I taught and what he learned. Why? Because these two are not equations that are equal. These are not equal. These two parts are not equal. They are not balanced. There is a difference. So, when we go to the next slide, please, Prachi, the next slide.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question here is that if teaching is not equal to learning, can we say that if your student is not learning, you are not teaching? Is it so? Can we say that? We need to answer again. कि अगर टीचिंग और लर्निंग बराबर नहीं है तो कितना बराबर नहीं है ना? कितना बराबर नहीं है? अगर स्टूडेंट समझ नहीं रहा है तो क्या आपने पढ़ाया है? या does it mean that if he is not learning you are not teaching? Why we are saying so? Because research has proven that whatever time we teachers devote to improve our teaching does not give the same output that the student has learnt more. Right? So, if I am going to a class after studying 3 hours and taking 1 hour class, those 3 hours effort, is it giving 100% increase in the students' learning? I don't know. No, it does not. Right. And the second thing that is very, very important is that we are very mechanical when we are teaching. Right? जो lecture mode है वो mechanical है. And once we are mechanical, teaching and learning become more farther from one another. So it means that lecturing or lecture delivering may be a part जो हम अभी कर रहे हैं, ये एक पार्ट हो सकता है, लेकिन क्लास में हम जरूरी नहीं है कि हमारा लेक्चर स्टूडेंट उतने ही इंटरेस्ट से सुनेगा जितने इंटरेस्ट से हम पढ़ा रहे हैं, और अगर वो इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है उसमें, वो कभी लर्न नहीं करेगा. Right? So poor teaching mechanics further, there is a difference in the teaching and learning. So this is something which we have to go for. The next slide, please, Prachi. Now, let us now talk about the focus Why? Because we said that, you know, higher education में learning focus है, right? जबकि हम शुरू से teaching focus में रहे हैं, तो ये है difference. What do I want to teach? अगर मैंने क्लास में जाना है तो मैंने देखना है कि आज मैंने पढ़ाना क्या है जी. सिलेबस निकालो, वो टॉपिक देखो आज क्या पढ़ाना है, और मैंने आज अगर ये टॉपिक पढ़ाना है तो मैंने इसको कवर कैसे करना है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, when I was told that this class is going to be from 7 to 9, and 7, 7:10 the class will begin, and then 9, 9:10, 9:15. So, you know, I was wondering कि अच्छा 2 घंटे की क्लास है तो इसमें कितनी स्लाइड्स होंगी तो काम चल जाएगा. फर्स्ट थॉट मेरे को ये आया, बट देन आई रियलाइज्ड कि नो, आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट कि मेरे को ये पूरा स्लाइड पूरा का पूरा कवर करना है. आई एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन दैट. व्हाई? बिकॉज प्रोबेबली देयर इज अ नीड दैट द पार्टिसिपेंट्स should understand that what we are trying to get out of it. So learning focus है कि अगर एक स्पेसिफिक ऑब्जेक्टिव है, जैसे मैंने जब ये स्लाइड्स प्लान किए, मेरा स्पेसिफिक ऑब्जेक्टिव था that we are able to understand that how we can be more effective teachers in the changing environment. So towards the end of the session, am I able to get something like that? क्या वो मेरा आउटपुट हो सकता है? That's something. So ये लर्निंग फोकस है. जबकि टीचिंग फोकस में होगा कि अच्छा मुझे 2 घंटे हैं, मुझे कितनी स्लाइड्स बनानी चाहिए कि मेरा काम आराम से 2 घंटे निकल जाए, या मेरे को क्या बोलना है, मुझे ये स्लाइड चाहिए नहीं चाहिए, मुझे चाहिए नहीं चाहिए, मैं नहीं हूं इम्पोर्टेंट, आप होने चाहिए. द मोमेंट माई फोकस फ्रॉम मी शिफ्ट टू यू, I change my focus from teaching to learning. So that's the orientation that we need to develop now, right? As a teacher, how my role changes. Earlier, we were delivering instructions that, this, then this, then this, a process, a flow chart. And when we used to, share some knowledge in a class, जो बच्चे सवाल का जवाब देते थे वो हो गए अच्छे बच्चे, जिन्होंने सवाल का जवाब नहीं दिया वो नालायक है, उनको कुछ नहीं आता, है ना. ट्रेडिशनली यही होता रहा है. बट नाउ इज इट सो? क्या ये ऐसा है? नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. Because now you have to ensure that a student learns, because you have specific learning outcomes that have been defined, pre-designed. और वो आपने डिजाइन किए हैं कि जो बच्चा ये सब्जेक्ट पढ़ेगा ये उसके लर्निंग आउटकम्स होंगे. तो यू हैव टू इंश्योर कि वो आउटकम्स अचीव हों. सो यू प्रोड्यूस लर्निंग. एंड हाउ डू यू इंश्योर कि उसने वो लर्न किया? क्योंकि आप उसको you motivate him to construct some kind of knowledge. आप हर स्टूडेंट की कॉम्पिटेंस के हिसाब से, उसकी टैलेंट के हिसाब से उसको मोटिवेट करते हो कि वो कुछ ऐसा क्रिएट करे जिससे कि आपका लर्निंग आउटकम अचीव होता है. सो द फोकस नाउ इज ऑन द लर्नर. फोकस नाउ इज understanding a student better. So when I said that I know my student more than my teacher knew me, because this is what I need. This is where I stand today. That if I know my student, if I know his competencies, I know what kind of things he or she can do. So my outcome has to be in line with his competencies. I cannot say कि ये नालायक है, इसको कुछ नहीं आता, इसको जाने दो. Can't say that. So that's the second thing. The third one is the success criteria. पहले आपकी सक्सेस होती थी कि आपने बच्चे को क्या पढ़ाया, उसके कितने नंबर आए। आज स्टूडेंट की परफॉर्मेंस आपके नंबर के हिसाब से नहीं है, बट वो रूब्रिक्स के हिसाब से है जो आपने पहले डिसाइड किए, प्री डिजाइंड रूब्रिक। जब आप जिस दिन आप पहले दिन क्लास में गए, आपने अपने बच्चे को 4 चीजें बताई, आपका लेसन प्लान, आपका पूरा जिस कैसे आपका कोर्स चलेगा, वो कैसे इवैल्यूएट होगा, आपके क्या पैरामीटर्स होंगे इवैल्यूएशन के। तो आप बच्चा देख के पैरामीटर नहीं बनाते, आप सब्जेक्ट देख के कि बच्चे को क्या होना चाहिए, आप पैरामीटर्स बनाते हो। उन पैरामीटर्स पे बच्चे की परफॉर्मेंस, लर्निंग फोकस, और वो है आपका सक्सेस क्राइटेरिया। देन द लास्ट थिंग कि एजम्पशन क्या थी टीचिंग में, कि जिसको कोई नौकरी नहीं करनी है वो टीचर बन जाए, इजी जॉब। आज भी हम लोगों को बोला जाता है करते क्या हो तुम लोग, यूनिवर्सिटी में जाके 2 क्लास लेते हो और बस, सबसे इजी जॉब है टीचिंग। हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू अग्री टू दिस, आई डोंट नो, बट आई सर्टेनली डू नॉट अग्री टू इट। टीचिंग इज अ मोस्ट कॉम्प्लिकेटेड जॉब. There are at the same time 60 people judging you, and we are striving to meet the expectations of 60 people in a class, or maybe 100, maybe more than that. So anybody and everybody cannot teach. ये assumption teaching focus की थी कि कोई भी पढ़ा सकता है जी, नहीं पढ़ा सकता। और अच्छा टीचर बनने के लिए आपको अपने आप को डेवलप करना पड़ता है, आपको अपने आप को इम्प्रूव करना पड़ता है, अपने आप को ट्रेन करना पड़ता है। एंड दैट इज व्हाई सिंस द स्टूडेंट, his expectation, his requirement is changing, you also have to change. आपने क्यों चेंज होना है? क्योंकि आपका बच्चा बदल रहा है, सब कुछ बदल रहा है, तो आप उसके हिसाब से आपको भी बदलना पड़ेगा. If you don't, then it is difficult. Okay, I hope you all agree to me, because this is something which is very personal, right? And I believe that it is very true also. छोटे बच्चे को पढ़ाना सबसे डिफिकल्ट काम है, और उसको वही पढ़ा सकता है जिसको वो आर्ट या स्किल है, कि वो बैठे आपके पास, आपको आप में उसको वो इंटरेस्ट आए कि आप वो आपके साथ बैठेगा, सीखेगा, तभी पढ़ पाएगा, है ना? सो ऐसा ही बड़े बच्चों के लिए भी है. सो टीचिंग इज कॉम्प्लेक्स and we have to upgrade ourselves continuously. The next slide, Prachi. So we say that, teaching must work towards developing competencies of a student, competencies that are required to survive, to sustain the change that is there, right? And what are the competencies we are now talking a lot? For example, we're talking about complex problem solving or communication, or we're also talking about developing content, right? Collaborations. I should be aware what I want, then only I will be able to distinguish that where I want to collaborate, and that is the crux of my success. So my talent is that if I have good communication, I will be able to collaborate more effectively, and I will get what I want, right? So next slide, Prachi. I'm talking about some definitions, they are not much relevant, I'll go to the next slide. Next slide, Prachi. Yeah. The best definition that I would consider in this case is definition number 4, that talks about all the factors beyond the classroom. And they are talking about effectiveness, right? That we say that effectiveness is the teacher's characteristics, his competence, his or her competence, his or her performance oblique behavior. 4 things. टीचर की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स क्या है, टीचर की कॉम्पिटेंस क्या है, उसकी परफॉर्मेंस, उसका बिहेवियर कैसा है. अगर ये 3-4 चीजें एट द सेम टाइम इकट्ठी एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती तो टीचर इफेक्टिव नहीं है. प्लस इन एडिशन टू दिस, अगर वो एक अच्छा लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस क्रिएट नहीं कर पाता, अगर वो लर्निंग आउटकम्स को अचीव नहीं कर पाता, अगर वो अपने आप को अपग्रेड नहीं करता, राइट, अगर वो अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट को डेवलप नहीं करता और वो अपनी स्टूडेंट की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स को नहीं जानता, तो वो इफेक्टिव टीचर नहीं है. You will say there are too many things. Yes, there are. Because there are 2 people involved at the same time, a teacher and a student. There are some things of a teacher himself which are internal to him that increases effectiveness, and then there are some things which are external to him that are of his students, his or her students, that also make sure that his effectiveness increases. Therefore टीचर की इफेक्टिवनेस के 2 पैरामीटर्स हैं, 2 अलग अलग. There are 2 aspects. One is a teacher and one is a student, right? We go to the next one, please. The next slide. Yeah. And if you look at the number 6 definition, we say that all that was mentioned in definition 4. Now you add 2 more things into it. Evaluation and professional development. How you evaluate, how you are evaluated, both, and how you develop yourself over a period of time. This is your effectiveness, a total teacher effectiveness. So we are talking about your internal characteristics, your students characteristics, and your performance, कि आप evaluate कैसे करते हैं और आप अपने आप को develop कैसे करते हैं. जब इन सब चीजों को इकट्ठा ले लिया जाएगा तो हम बोलेंगे कि टीचर की इफेक्टिवनेस ये है. Complex but interesting, right? Maybe go to the next slide, please. Now, मैंने बहुत सारे factors लिख लिए. General profile of effective teachers. You can read it all, right? But I think the most important things, if you look into all these, are the number 2, that you know what strategy you are going to adopt to teach a particular topic in a class. Very important. आपको अपना कोर्स पता है, लेकिन उसको कम्युनिकेट कैसे करना है, वो स्ट्रैटेजी सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि उससे आपकी इफेक्टिवनेस इंक्रीज कर जाती है. The second thing, if we look at that, when we are teaching a student, are we ensuring that his cognitive skills are improving? Is he able to learn the metacognitive strategies and he masters them? How to interpret the information that is being made available as per you desire it, that he should understand this. वो metacognitive abilities क्या हम अपनी क्लास में क्रिएट कर पाते हैं? Am I able to integrate my subject with the other subject areas? And the last one, and the most important one, do we accept responsibility for student outcomes? जो NEP है वो कहता है कि अगर आपका स्टूडेंट आउटकम एज पर इट 1 to 3 के स्केल पे अगर वो 3 के आसपास नहीं है तो आपको एक वीक स्टूडेंट का एक्स्ट्रा क्लास लेना है. स्ट्रैटेजीज है. तो आप अकाउंटेबल हो अपने स्टूडेंट के आउटकम के लिए. क्या आप वो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ओन करते हैं? अगर हाँ तो आप अच्छे टीचर. अगर ना तो then we need to really think about it again. Is it right? Can we go to the next slide, please? So we must recognize that, how important is learning centered teaching in higher education. And it is critical for us that we should learn, right? Can we go to the next slide, Prachi? So learning centered teaching, we are talking about two things: outcome based course plan design, and the second one is effective professional development. Only two strategies we are talking about कि हम outcome based learning और effective professional development इन दो की ही बात कर रहे हैं. एक है कि जो हम क्लास में करते हैं और दूसरा हम अपने आप को डेवलप कैसे करते हैं. प्लीज द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड, प्राची. So these are the 7 principles that we must look at when we are talking about learning centered course plan design. जब हम अपने लेक्चर को डिवाइस करते हैं तो हमें ये 7 प्रिंसिपल्स का ध्यान रखना चाहिए. पहला कि हमारी लर्निंग एक्टिव होनी चाहिए. एक्टिव मीन्स वेयर अ स्टूडेंट इज मेड टू परफॉर्म some activity wherein he is getting an experience of learning. For example, a role play in a class, or a discussion in a class, a quiz in a class, a PPT in a class, lot many examples. So what you are doing in a class, or maybe simply asking questions here and there and seeing that they are actively moving along with you during your course, during your session. So encourage active learning. Make them do something on their own. Encourage teacher student contact. Make yourself available. Talk to them. It will help you understand them more. It will help you go to their level in a class. It will help you improve your students' outcome, learning outcome. So teacher student contact is something very basic. Make sure that students learn to work in a team together. So encourage cooperation. Make them work in groups. Make them, handhold each other so that they learn to cooperate, to work in teams. Group performers bane. Individual performers अच्छे leaders नहीं बनते. Group performers leaders बनते हैं. You give a prompt feedback to your class. एक टेस्ट हुआ, एकदम से आपने बता दिया कि आपके 2 नंबर आए, क्यों नंबर आए, ये सब. Give a prompt feedback in a class. Emphasize that a thing should be done in time. Always give a higher expectation to your student. I expect you to do this. I expect you. They will feel more accountable, more responsible to you. So communicate high expectation to them. And respect diversity in a class. Every student has his own way of learning, is different. When we start treating everybody with the same yardstick, it doesn't work. So respect diversity. And that diversity also makes you adjust to different ways of learning. Right? And mind it that the day 1, when you go in your class, make sure that you share your course delivery plan with everybody in a class. It should be a religion to hold. और वो बच्चे के लिए गाइडलाइन है कि आज क्लास में ये पढ़ना है और ये कहाँ से पढ़ना है, इसमें क्या करवाना है, वो सब लिखा रहता है. उससे स्टूडेंट को डायरेक्शन मिलती है, एंड दैट इज व्हाट वर्क्स. द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्राची. Bloom's taxonomy is being used as the basic tool for developing learning outcomes, right? And it is basically a hierarchy of outputs that we intend that our students should acquire. So Bloom's taxonomy also helps us by providing a structure for writing learning outcomes. I would request you all to please read about Bloom's taxonomy. It is something wonderful, works wonders, and it makes your teaching so easy and so effective, right? So do this, follow it. It is very useful. Next one. These are the 6 parameters that we talk about the Bloom's taxonomy. The first one is, the first learning outcomes can be what you want your student to know. उसको क्या पता रहना चाहिए, knowledge. For example, मैं सेल्स पढ़ाती हूँ, तो मेरे स्टूडेंट को जैसे पता रहना चाहिए कि सेल और मार्केटिंग में क्या अंतर है. बहुत बेसिक है, लेकिन पता रहना चाहिए कि सेल और मार्केटिंग में क्या अंतर है. तो पहला ऑब्जेक्टिव मेरा लर्निंग आउटकम ये होना चाहिए that my student is able to understand the difference between sales and marketing. Then comprehend कि वो कैसे उसको चीज को अंडरस्टैंड करके बिल्ड करता है, कैसे वो अप्लाई करता है, कैसे वो एनालाइज करता है, कैसे वो कंस्ट्रक्ट करता है और कैसे वो इवैल्यूएट करता है. These are the levels, 6 successive levels. तो आइडिया ये है कि एक स्टूडेंट लेवल 1 से चलेगा और लेवल 6 तक जाना चाहिए. अब वो डिपेंड करेगा कि आप किस सेमेस्टर में बच्चे को पढ़ा रहे हो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इन अ सेमेस्टर 4 where he is studying a major specialization and a minor specialization, there the objectives about knowledge and comprehension seem to be less effective. There we should be talking about synthesis, evaluation, analysis, all that. So फर्स्ट सेकेंड सेमेस्टर में हम लोग फोकस करते हैं नॉलेज, कॉम्प्रिहेंशन, एप्लीकेशन, कि हाँ ये कहाँ कहाँ यूज हो सकता है, कैसे कैसे कर सकते हैं, इसको अप्लाई करके दिखाइए, डेमोन्स्ट्रेट दिखाइए. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स. सो दिस इज हाउ वी क्रिएट आवर लर्निंग आउटकम्स. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्राची. अब कैरेक्टरिस्टिक क्या है कि वो स्पेसिफिक होने चाहिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, when I say that a student after studying this course should be able to explain the difference between sales and marketing, specific है, specific है. और वो उसमें क्या, कैसे वो किन वर्ड्स को यूज करके वो डिफरेंस बताता है, वो मेजरेबल है. सो आपके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स आउटकम्स के स्पेसिफिक होने चाहिए, मेजरेबल होने चाहिए, एक्शनेबल होने चाहिए, रेलेवेंट होने चाहिए और टाइम बेस्ड होने चाहिए. फर्स्ट में क्या है, सेकंड में क्या है, थर्ड में क्या है, फोर्थ में क्या है, should go like that, right? So what is an objective that makes a lot of sense in a first semester may not make any sense in third and fourth, not even in second maybe. So as a teacher, you have to be very specific about these. Okay, may I go to the next slide, Prachi? इसमें और भी पॉइंट्स होने चाहिए. One more. Yeah, that's right. So these are the steps to writing learning outcomes. Identify major topics of your course. Identify major topics of your course. Then, on of these major topics, you now classify the outcomes. Focus on the student's behavior. Now, how do you classify? कि student कैसे behave करता है? And then you see that what should a student learn? उसकी क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है, ये पेपर वो पढ़ेगा, इस पेपर का यूज कहाँ करेगा कल. And then once you have decided these three things, then choose a specific verb, action verb, and then you decide the rubric that how you will measure. I just give you an example. For example, हम लोग presentation देते हैं बहुत ज्यादा, है ना. हर सब्जेक्ट में presentation होती है, project होता है, you know. So for example, I give a project, ठीक है, और मैंने बोला कि बच्चे प्रोजेक्ट जो है वो 10 नंबर का रहेगा. दे हैव टू, हम प्रोजेक्ट को डिफाइन कर देते हैं कि वो मार्केट में जाएंगे, ये प्रोजेक्ट करेंगे, ऐसे करेंगे, फाइन. सो वी वर्क आउट द डिटेल्स. नाउ वी सी कि हमने बच्चे को जो प्रोजेक्ट बता दिया कि तुमने एक मार्केट रियल टाइम प्रोजेक्ट करना है मार्केट में जाके. अब हमने बच्चे को बता दिया कि दिस इज योर टॉपिक ऑफ, आपका प्रोजेक्ट का टाइटल ये है, फाइन. नाउ we will define specific criterias कि उसके प्रोजेक्ट में क्या क्या होना चाहिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, उसने वो प्रोजेक्ट में इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखा, उसके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या थे प्रोजेक्ट के, उसने उन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स के लिए क्या रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी फॉलो किया, उसने कैसे वो मार्केट में जाके किया, सेकेंडरी डेटा यूज किया तो क्या सोर्सेज लगाए. ये 5 नंबर में हम ऐसे क्राइटेरियाज को डिफाइन करते हैं. 5 नंबर हम कहते हैं कि हम आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन के लेंगे. तो प्रेजेंटेशन में आपने क्या कंटेंट कवर किया, आपकी ग्रुप की परफॉर्मेंस क्या रही, आपने आपकी कम्युनिकेशन स्किल क्या थी, आपका बॉडी लैंग्वेज क्या था, आप कितने क्रिस्प थे, आपने कितना टाइम लगाया, एटसेट्रा. देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स दैट यू कैन टॉक अबाउट. तो आपने क्या किया, आपने मेजर कर दिया कि अगर एक बच्चा कंटेंट में ये लिखेगा, ये कवर करेगा राइटिंग में, तो उसको कंटेंट के अगर 2 नंबर हैं तो उसको 2 नंबर पूरे मिलेंगे. और अगर उसने ये नहीं लिखा तो उसको 1 नंबर 1.5 नंबर मिलेगा. अगर ये लिखा तो 1 नंबर मिलेगा, अगर ये लिखा तो आधा नंबर मिलेगा, और अगर तो ठीक है. सो ऐसे करके हम सारे पैरामीटर्स को वर्कआउट करेंगे एंड देन यू विल अनाउंस इट. स्टेट योर सक्सेस क्राइटेरिया कि अगर आपके 10 में से 8 नंबर आएंगे, 7 नंबर आएंगे, 6 नंबर आएंगे, तो आपका स्कोर, आप एवरेज क्या है. 10 में से मान लीजिए हम कहते हैं कि मेरा रिजल्ट 70% होना चाहिए, तो 7 इज एवरेज. सो ऑल द स्टूडेंट्स हु स्कोर मोर देन 7 दे हैव एक्सेल्ड. तो उनका हाईएस्ट स्कोर अगर 3 है तो उनको 3 मिलेगा. अगर 7 से नीचे, 7 पे कितने बच्चे हैं, उनका 2, 7 से नीचे 1. So this is how we evaluate the rubrics, right? And this helps us to see that how much the student has learned in a class. We are able to, in a very objective manner, we can see that the performance of the student has been measured in an objective manner, and there are no questions asked on your being biased or being, and you become more effective in your evaluation, in your teaching, and in a student's learning also. The next slide, Prachi. Just an example, learning outcomes का कि हम ऐसे बना सकते हैं. आप डिफरेंशिएट कीजिए सेल्स और मार्केटिंग में कौन से फैक्टर्स हैं जो इफेक्ट करते हैं, उनको, उनके बारे में फिर क्रिटिकली इवैल्यूएट कीजिए सेल्स मैनेजमेंट इन कॉन्सेप्ट्स को, डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट कीजिए सेलिंग स्किल्स को, और प्रपोज कीजिए कि आप. सो इसमें मैंने आपको 6 लेवल्स का एक एक ऑब्जेक्टिव बना के दिखाया कि ऐसे हम, और अगर आप फर्स्ट वर्ड देखो ये एक्शन वर्ब्स हैं, डिफरेंशिएट, अप्रेज, इवैल्यूएट, डेमोन्स्ट्रेट, प्रपोज, these are all the action verbs that a student can do. Then the next slide. So we come to the next, probably the last topic, that is effective professional development. So we are saying that a teacher is a professional, right? And in the 21st century, he is more of a professional. And if you are a professional, you have to upgrade yourself continuously. So these are things in which you have to improve. When we are talking about sophisticated teaching, we have to talk about the content, which is changing, which is challenging. You have to be a critical thinker. You have to be a problem solver. You have to be effective communicator, collaborator, and you should know where you want to reach. And if you want to do all this, you need to refine your pedagogies. You need to work on your own self and learn these skills. The next slide. So basically, professional development leads to changes in teaching practices. And once you change your teaching practice, students' learning outcomes also improve, right? And therefore, now the focus is very highly on professional development. The next slide, Prachi. So, the professional development is content focused. You would be surprised that now the focus is intentionally on curriculum development, specific curriculum development and pedagogy development. An international book may be available to you, but what pedagogy is there? Majority of the publishing houses, they have started, they come up with the teacher's manual. Everybody must have seen that. आपको कंपनी वाले बुक के साथ टीचिंग वो भी देते हैं और आप उसमें से देखते हैं. So now what is there? The pedagogies are now being developed, and they are, if you follow those pedagogies, you see that your teaching becomes much more effective in a class. Students tend to learn more. So content is the key, right? The second one is a lot of active learning is being incorporated into teaching. For example, we are ensuring that interactive activities where the student and the teacher, they work together. Highly contextual learning, right? Simulation is another model. That is, so now lecture basis is there. It is not gone completely out of the scene, but now a lot of things are getting added into it. Interactive classes, interactive boards, where you can talk on a YouTube about a topic. So what happens that suddenly it all becomes very real, a real time scenario. So active learning is something which is being focused upon, and to ensure that you develop yourself as a professional. The next point, Prachi, professional development is supporting collaborations, right? For example, collaboration in research is leading to a contextual learning, more effective contextual learning. We are able to work together across cultures, across groups, and suddenly our way of communication increases many folds, right? For example, presently in this particular FDP, how many different colleges, places, states, schools, universities, people have come from. People have got together. Who could think of an FDP being held 7 to 9 at night? But this is all possible because we all are collaborating with each other. We all are working together to ensure that we all learn from one another. So collaboration is a key to professional development. Models, use of models. So instruction manuals are being developed which are more modeled, which are more, which are more based on the best practices across the world. And that is where we are talking about choosing the best that is available. And peer teachers, videos, written cases, all such information is further enhancing our teaching learning mechanisms. So this is another thing that has really evolved our professional competencies. And then, of course, coaching and expert support is available. For example, this program in itself is a coaching and expert support. Gurukul Kangri is doing this FDP. I think this I've been doing it with them for since 2020, right? And so many people from different places are getting together, not as participants, but even the faculty. So probably the organizers are identifying people who they would like to have in their curriculum and ensure that these people help other teachers also, hand holding of one another and going to a certain level of performance. Idea is this only of this FDP. So this professional development helps us achieve and share our expertise about anything that we have with others. So everybody learns in the process. The next slide, please, Prachi. Yeah. Professional development helps us get feedback also. So teachers also get time to think. कि भैया हम क्या करते हैं? But the first time when I started working on the outcome-based learning, I thought it is just not possible. ये सब तो हो ही नहीं सकता. But it is possible. We are following it now. And it is pretty effective. Right? So we need time. The feedback helps us to improve ourselves, to make changes into our practice, and also move towards a uniform vision of performance. Right? So that is something which is very, very critical and very important. The last one is that if we are continuously working towards our professional development, we get adequate time to learn, to practice, and to reflect upon what is happening now. And if we are aware about all that, it always facilitates change in our performance. The next one. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about is the self-assessment guide. It's something very interesting, and please read it very carefully. There is a scale of 1 to 4, right? I would, it's your self-assessment. I'm not going to ask you where you rank yourself, but you can do it on your own, right? This framework helps us to understand that which is the weak link in my performance, and I can work on that. So you can strategize your performance. You can strategize your effectiveness in a class, right? So the next slide, Prachi. The last slide, Prachi.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So you see there is a 3 by 3 matrix, and there are 4 blocks only which are yellow in color, right? If you read these, they are the basic foundation of your effectiveness. So the first block is What are the rules, procedures that your organization has that can enhance the, the learning environment of your class? So how do you organize your classroom to enhance learning and establish rules and procedures that clarify that this is what is expected from them? Majority of the times, teachers do not follow it. Majority of the times. And let me tell you that if you do not organize your class as per the rules and regulations, so when you don't set the rules for your class, you don't have any performance criteria. And when you don't have any performance criteria, what will you evaluate upon? Right. So on a scale of 1 to 4, please rank yourself. Right. What will happen once, and there can be multiple things that you can talk about in this case. For example, आपकी class में behavior कैसा होना चाहिए, you can talk about that. That's a rule. What do you do if a student comes late to your class? What do you do? Do you communicate to your student that, he's allowed to enter in a class till what time? Can he attend to a phone call during a class? Is there any urgency, emergency? How do you define an emergency in your class? So many things. And these are all talking about rules and procedures. So there can be multiple criterias in this. Just follow them and rank yourself 1 to 4. 4 is highest, 1 is lowest. If you are doing it, you have a certain score for it. Now go to the other yellow block. Positive relationships. How do you build relationships with your student? What do you do in a class that helps you to relate better to your student and also among the students? So do you do any such things in your class? What do you do? Do you make them work in groups? Do you give them group assignments? Do you allow them to, do you allow them to move outside the class in a group? Do you evaluate them in group performances? So there can be anything. You can have your own criteria. So positive relationships, a culture of thinking and learning. How do you develop a classroom culture that promotes serious learning and sophisticated thinking? क्या करते हैं आप क्लास में ऐसे? करते हैं या नहीं करते हैं? At least now we are aware that there is something like this. And the last criteria is engagement and enjoyment. If you make your class interesting, the student will come to your class. He will do good in your class because he would love to learn in your class because it's something which is engaging, which is more enjoying. So what are you doing to make it more engaging, to make it more enjoying? ये हैं 4 फाउंडेशंस. अगर ये इन प्लेस हैं तो हम इफेक्टिवनेस पे आगे चल सकते हैं. The portions that are marked in blue, they are dependent upon these foundations. For example, if we see the first blue is preparing student for new learning. How do you establish your learning outcomes as their purpose? How do you activate your student in your class? Do you expect him to know something? What is his prior knowledge level that you are expecting him to have in your class? And then from there, you pick up and make them learn more. Is there any base understanding that you are expecting? और वो कब होगा जब आपके रूल्स और प्रोसीजर्स डिफाइन होंगे और आपका रिलेशनशिप अच्छा होगा. Similarly, we go for deepening learning. Now you have prepared your student. Now you want him to go to the next level of learning. How do you help your student holistically solidify कि उसने जो नया सीखा वो कैसे उस रिटेन करेगा, उसको कैसे लर्न करेगा. That is important. That is important. कि उसने क्या नया सीखा और उसने उसको कितना रिटेन किया. So you have increased his learning. You have deepened his learning. Then the next one is, how do you present that new learning? How do you present your information? How do you provide that opportunity to your student that he is actively working towards learning new thing from you? How do you prepare your student to celebrate his learning? Do you help him refine his learning? सीखना एक बात है, रिफाइन करना और. क्या आप अपने स्टूडेंट की लर्निंग को रिफाइन करने में भी उसकी हेल्प करते हैं? सपोज ही हैज अ क्वेश्चन. हम लोगों को बहुत बुरी आदत है, जब स्टूडेंट क्वेश्चन पूछता है, वी से लेटर, लेट मी फिनिश फर्स्ट. कि भैया पहले मुझे खत्म कर लेने दे, उसके बाद में तूने जो पूछना है तो पूछना. और अगर एक बार के बाद वो दूसरी बार पूछता है सेम क्वेश्चन, तो हम कहते हैं कि पहली बार में समझ नहीं आया, छोड़ दे, तुम्हारे बस का ही नहीं है. So we are not allowing him to celebrate his learning, because when he asks a question, he's trying to pick the threads up. He's trying to ensure that he has learned. And the last thing is, how do the students demonstrate that they have learned? And what is the evidence that you collect to ensure that they have learned? For example, मैं आपको एक बहुत छोटे से इंसिडेंट के साथ I will stop, where I was teaching sales to a class, one of my batch, and now I wanted them to be evaluated out of 15 marks. So I told them that I wanted to give you a project, but I don't want to, because project में आप लिख के आओगे और एक परफॉर्मेंस, अपनी परफॉर्मेंस दोगे जो मुझे नहीं चाहिए. So tell me how you would tell me that you have learned sales. The kids told me that, ma'am, we will go out and sell. And I said, how do I believe that you have really done it? They said, ma'am, we will video record our performances and we will show those videos in a marketing club. That's how you will evaluate. It was the students they gave me that this is how they would love to be evaluated. Trust me, the result was amazingly wonderful. Students created products. They did not buy the product from a market and sold it. They created products and they sold them. They made videos and then they showed videos. It was an amazing experience for them and for me also. So they applied their learning. They demonstrated that this is how they have undertaken sales. Prachi, the last slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody's happy with the slide. Thank you. I think, Prachi, that's all from my side.
Okay, thank you so very much, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, anybody has a question, I would be more than willing. Thank you.
Participants, the board is open for all of you to ask the questions. Navneet sir, Navneet sir, you are muted.
Yeah, evening. Can I come?
Oh, thank you.
Sir.
Okay, let me request. Thanks. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your deliberation. Dear participants, as it is known that थोड़ा पढ़ना, ज़्यादा सोचना और उससे भी ज़्यादा गुणना बुद्धिमान होने के लक्षण होते हैं. So as we have said that this is a question answer round. So I request you to write your question in the chat box or raise your hand. Please, please.
I think Dr. Ashish Bhatnagar is raising his hand.
Yeah, Dr. Sir.
Yeah, good evening, Professor. It was a really wonderful session from you. Coming back to the question that you had raised, where you said that, are you ready to bring about the change?
Yeah.
Probably during the discussion, you said that we'll revisit this question at the end of the session. I just wanted to bring out, there is no doubt about the fact that a teacher is not willing to change. There is absolutely no doubt about this fact. But given the situations in which a faculty or a teacher operates, probably the situations where the institutions are headed by academics, the situations are a little different. But in institutions, private institutions, whether it is a private university or a higher educational institution or an autonomous institution, which is being headed by a private owners or private board of management, things are a little different. Things are a little different because there, I mean, the what you can say, the focus is more commercial rather than academic. Uh, Now, having said that, why I say that, the very fact that this faculty development program online sessions are being conducted from 7 to 9:30 in the evening, the very fact about that is, that is the reason. Why not this program be held during the daytime? Obviously, because all faculty members have their engagements, their teaching, and their other administrative duties during the day. So somehow, somewhere the underline is that the development of the faculty is taking a backseat. Otherwise, there was no reason why again, driving this point into the minds of the private managements is a bigger challenge rather than institutions which are being headed by academics. So, again, coming back to that same thing, no, there is absolutely no academic who is not willing to bring about a change. But how empowered that academician is to bring about a change in the organization, that is a very a big question.
I agree with you, Dr. Ashish, because I mentioned all these things, that these are the issues that are there. Despite the fact that NEP has already been in place and now it is being implemented also, but some issues, they persist. And I fully agree with you that if you are into teaching, you have to upgrade yourself. And the kind of focus that we see in commercial institutions, higher education institutions, and that is different. Government institutions different. Uh, we have an advantage in government institutions with regards to that, which we don't see in private institutes. But the matter of fact also remains that even the private institutes, they may be slightly lethargic about undertaking it, but they will have to, because without it, they will not be able to sustain. They will not be. So it is possible that, they take some more time, but things have to come in uniformity throughout. There are two questions here. What is there for management students in latest NEP? Ma'am, management students, they have been slightly different as compared to any other stream, because management educators for a very long time understood that there is a need for, if not some more skills, at least personality development, communication. They have been a part of our curriculum since we started it. The course started in India. But if you look at that, now the skills are also changing.